All right. Well, in the first place, the name Aqqdas, kitab-e-aqdas, relates to the word kazus, which means holy. And in Hebrew, the inner room of the temple, of Solomon's temple, or the tent of witness that had the Ark of the Covenant in it, which was a box that had the 10 commandments of the law in it in stone, that room was called the Holy of Holies. And this word in Hebrew is Aqqdas. It's Hakadashin. So it's the Quds Hakadashin or Aqqdas Hakadashin. It means the Holy of Holies. So the reason that room was called the Holy of Holies isn't because the room itself was so special by itself that it was the Holy of Holies. It was called the Holy of Holies because it had something very special that only was supposed to be stored in that room. And what was stored in that room was the Ark of the Covenant. Because the Ark of the Covenant is so sacred and so holy, the room that they put the Ark of the Covenant in was called the Aqqdas, or the most holy place. The most holy book is what they're saying. This is kitab-e-aqdas. So it's the most holy place because it's the place where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. For instance, in my house, I have a coat closet. We call it the coat closet. Why isn't it the broom closet? It's because we put our coats in that closet. We have another closet that it's the broom closet where we actually have a broom in that closet. Or sometimes one closet might be the broom and coat closet. So we call it that because of what's inside it, not because of what it is in and of itself. So the Aqqdas, the most holy place, the Holy of Holies in the Hebrew temple, is called that because the Ark of the Covenant is stored there. Showqi افندی explains that the Persians and the Bahai Guardian group, they don't have Baha'u'llah's Aqqdas to publish. That his book, the Aqqdas, Showqi افندی tells us, is contained in 26 different volumes of Baha'u'llah's writings. Now, 2 of these volumes are a manuscript called the kitab-e-aqdas and another manuscript called Questions and Answers. And in the 8th Ishrakat, that's another volume where he says this passage is now accounted as part of the Aqdas. And so there's 23 other volumes of Baha'u'llah's writings, aside from the 3 I mentioned, that have different laws, ordinances, and teachings that belong inside what we would call Baha'u'llah's book of the kitab-e-aqdas proper. Now, the reason that one of the 26 volumes is in itself called the kitab-e-aqdas is because that's the volume that has the Ark of the Covenant in it. In Baha'u'llah's book of the Covenant, the kitab-e-ad, he quotes the Aqdas in the place where he says that after his own passing, God will raise up this branch, meaning he interprets in the kitab-e-ad Abdul Baha to be the center of his covenant. So it makes the Aqdas the most holy book of Baha'u'llah's laws, ordinances, and teachings when it's compiled together correctly out of these 26 volumes. The most holy book is that that's the book where it's first written that Abdul Baha is the center of his covenant where he'll be appointed. So if the Bahais were going to have a book in their home that was comparable to the Tanakh and the Quran and the Injil, the Gospel, it would be the Kitab-e-ad and the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha. Baha'u'llah's Kitab-e-ad, which quotes the Aqdas, is the reason why the Aqdas is called the Aqdas, because it contained the hidden secret of the Book of the Covenant in it. That made it the most holy book, that one manuscript out of the 26 volumes. So the Kitab-e-ad with Abdul Baha's Will and Testament is the spirit and essence of what is the Aqdas. That is the Baha'i most holy book. Every Baha'i should have a copy of the kitab-e-aqdas and the Will and Testament in their home, the same way a Christian has the New Testament, the Jews have the Tanakh, and the Muslims have the Quran. That's the Baha'i Holy Book. Now, the wisdom in this, where's the Aqdas, is that in 1,000 years, when another manifestation of God comes, they can renew all the laws in the Aqdas. And whatever's not explicitly revealed in the Aqdas, the Universal House of Justice will legislate supplementary law that's just as weighty as the Aqdas itself. So once the Aqdas is actually compiled, this is going to give guidance of laws of personal status and social things for society to function around, supplemented by legislation from the Universal House of Justice. And if the legislation of the Universal House of Justice of one day is obsolete, a future House of Justice can revoke what a previous House of Justice has done and give new law or ordinance or teaching for that current time that supplement the Aqdas. And the Aqdas itself will stay in place for 1,000 or 2,000 years, but when the next manifestation of God comes, they might reveal a whole new Aqdas. But the Book of the Covenant lasts for a 5,000 century Baha'i cycle. So in this cycle, he's placed the rejuvenation and renewal and restoration of laws, ordinances, and teachings upon the coming of the manifestations every 1,000 years or so, and in the interim by the supplementary laws of the House of Justice. Shoghi Effendi stated this during his lifetime, that he himself was not going to compile and codify the 26 volumes of the Aqdas and have it published fully, but that the future Universal House of Justice will do this. And that's still where things are at right now. And you can be darn sure that the other claimants to being the House of Justice have no clue of how to go about doing this, that they are unaware of where these 26 volumes are, and they don't have access to some of them. Some of these volumes were sent by letter from Baha'u'llah to believers in different places, and they have the only copies of this stuff. And when the covenant was broken, these people were no longer associating with the covenant breaking takeover of the Sands Guardians in Haifa, and they still have these manuscripts of Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha in their possession. And it's not going to be until the future, when the war is over and the House of Justice is settled and this dispute over the covenant is resolved, that people that have these manuscripts will produce them. And then when we have access to all of the manuscripts of Baha'u'llah and we see what those are, we can go through and find these 26 different volumes that Shoghi Effendi is talking about. In the same sentence, he says that Baha'u'llah might be writing them a letter, and all of a sudden he'll reveal a passage and he'll say, now this is part of the Aqdas. And then he'll keep writing. And all of those haven't even been collected up yet. So that's work that the future House of Justice is still going to perform. But the Baha'i Holy Book that everybody should have in their home, which is the most holy reason why that was called the most holy book, is the Book of the Covenant. They should all have a copy of the kitab-e-aqdas and the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha. All the Baha'is should read both of those and memorize those books. The kitab-e-aqdas is very short. It's 25 small passages, and the Will and Testament's in 3 short parts. This is the book the Baha'is should be memorizing as their most holy book, because it's why that's called the most holy book. That's called the most holy book because the Book of the Covenant is contained therein.